to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
Well, I'm angry. I've been thrown into a state of absolute rage, and I'm going to talk about it. Even though I've kind of calmed down a little bit. If you were anxiously waiting for the stream, I prostrate myself before you and beg your forgiveness. I did not want to be late today. Because the show has momentum, and I don't know if the stream also has momentum. Nevertheless, I was upset that I had to be late, and it correlates to another thing that I was going to open the stream, the show, complaining about. But the reason that we began late today is because my notes that I take on my phone most of the time would not sync with my computer, which means none of the links that I had saved would be available to click on my computer. None of the cutting and pasting that I had done in shaping the show, crafting the segues, none of that would be available. So I'm troubleshooting. I'm trying different things. I'm Googling. This is what I do. This is how I learn how to do things. I punch it into Google. Does this work? Does that work? None of it was working. And then I realized my phone's been trying to push an update for the last couple of days that for some reason, unbeknownst to me, unattributed to me, just wouldn't happen. I'd get the notification at some point in the day, tonight your phone's going to update. Okay, fine, I'll be sleeping. I don't care. I don't need you to tell me. I don't need you to ask for permission. What I do need is for you to work the way that you're supposed to when you're supposed to, when I need you to, when I'm about to launch my show and I need my notes on my phone to sync with my computer. And in an effort to force me to take their new update, which is 1 week old, I just updated a massive software update, or I just installed a massive software update last week, I think, of which I'm not a fan, which is why I was going to open the show complaining about that. But that apparently wasn't enough. The big update last week that sucks, that I'm not a big fan of, wasn't enough. I had to do it again just mere moments ago, because that was what Apple forced me to do if I wanted to use the services that I pay for. And I mean, how, like, the thing that I was going to complain about before this whole ordeal was the headphone volume notification that arrived with the new update. I don't know, Android users, if you also get these stupid headphone volume alerts on your phone that say, "Oh, I wonder if there's still one." No, I've recently. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. Come on, show me the notification. Volume should be turned down. Based on your headphone usage over the last 7 days, you've exceeded the recommended limit for audio exposure. Completely uncalled for. I don't need my hand held when it comes to the volume of things I'm listening to. Now, maybe you're thinking, oh, but earthvox, aren't you concerned about your hearing? You're going to damage your ear. They're just looking out for your own well-being. They just want you to be healthy and protected and have good hearing. Okay, where do I begin? Do we need to get into the minutia? They don't know what the source output is. I'm sure you notice if you're a fan of podcasts, which I think you probably are. You go from one podcast to the next, it's quieter, it's louder. You got to crank it all the way. I mean, this was one of my core annoyances throughout the day. I listen to a particular podcast and the volume is so low that I have to turn my headphones all the way up if I want to even be able to hear anything. And sometimes even that isn't enough. Then there's the headphones themselves. Some headphones are louder than others. They have better output, better quality components. These are all things that should be well known by Apple and its engineers and likely are. But the kicker for me when I was looking into this is that there's no because I thought, okay, this has government intervention written all over it. It's so nonsense. There's all these different variables that impact how actually loud the volume coming out of your device is, that this has to be some kind of government intervention. It has to be a new regulation. So I dug in. No, it's not. It's just stupid big tech entities forcing your devices to do things that you didn't ask for. How did we get here? How do we exist in this reality without having full-blown meltdowns at the audacity? I don't need Apple to be my parents. And even just, I mean, through life experience, if something is loud and you have to hear it for a long time, you are affected. But this was the was the least of my complaints this morning. I would really like to know if you are experiencing the same thing, what device you're using, and if there's anything wild. Like I have this vague memory that when I used to use Android phones, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, it would actually turn my volume down to like some predetermined level as soon as I started listening to something. And then when I would try to turn it up, I would get the notification. Oh, shame on you. You're hurting your ears. Didn't your mother tell you that it's not healthy to listen to loud things for a long time? As a matter of fact, she did. And that's why, Apple, I don't need you holding my hand as I go through life. I mean, oh, okay, we want to know that loud things damage our ears. That's great. We went to school. We have parents. I mean, maybe it's the failure of those two institutions that have put us in the predicament that we're in today. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Share the show. More guests on the way. We're figuring it out. We're doing the scheduling. Beyond outside of this podcast, I have a very busy schedule, as do the people that I would like to interview. And so it gets difficult. I did my taxes. By I mean my wife. And by did my taxes, I mean entered all of the numbers into TurboTax, went through the overtime ordeal, and this is the part of the show where I will start talking about my disappointment in the Trump administration thus far. Um, we are not homers, as they're referred to in the sports world. I'm not MAGA no matter what. I have personal expectations that have unfortunately been a little bit disappointed. I'm not the only one. I think a lot of voters are disappointed about the choices that they have made in the recent elections over the last couple of years. We're going to talk about that. but important to me, specific to me and many of my peers, was the no taxes on overtime. It didn't turn out to really be no taxes on overtime, did it? Not only is it no taxes on overtime, it's not even. I mean, it. Like, what would you call it? You can't call it no taxes on overtime because no taxes on overtime is a lie. And whether you voted for Trump or not, you have every right to be upset at the bait and switch. Now, did you vote for Donald Trump because he said no taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime? No, at least not myself. I'd be fine without that campaign promise. That is not what I was most anticipating about the new Trump administration. But I think we have more than small issues to take with the Trump administration. So instead of paying taxes on 40 hours of wages and having no taxes on the rest of it, you only get no taxes on the half of the quote time and a half that you earn when working overtime. So you still have to pay taxes on your hourly wage. It's just the halftime that you don't have to pay taxes on. Kind of feeling jobbed, especially with all of the fraud, all of the obvious fraud, waste, and abuse, which we heard about endlessly last year, which the Democrats, of course, were having come aparts over. Oh, he's looking at all of our personal information. How could we let this happen? How could Donald Trump allow such a blatant violation of our privacy? But if you ask him, what privacy? What privacy are you talking about? What information do these voting records, do these welfare applications have that the federal government, like, what do these documents contain that the federal government doesn't already have? And they have no answer. What could they say? What information does the federal government need that we don't willingly give them when we file our taxes or apply for a driver's license? I'm waiting. Can anybody tell me? Can you give me any reason, Democrats, why you're pushing back on these money saving measures, on these election integrity measures? Any reason that isn't, well, we want to keep defrauding the taxpayers and we want to continue defrauding the voters. Please, I mean, drop it down in the comments. Send me an email, therealearthvox@protonmail.com. Leave me a voicemail, 701-787-1121. With your argument. If you think it's fair, if you think the Trump administration is wrong, and if you don't agree that the Democrat pushback is all to perpetuate more fraud and more election rigging, I want to hear from you. I want to know. I want to know your argument. Another topic of disappointment: the Greenland sensation. I was quite excited. I was quite excited for the sensation, for the acquisition. This X post from Rapid Response 47, which I think ordinarily, I mean, we can just see for ourselves. We have the video up on Rumble and X and YouTube and Twitch if you need to go there. Please choose Rumble. Yes, Rapid Response 47 mainly posts Trump's Truth Social. There's other things. I mean, hit him with a follow if you like. I appreciate it. I don't know why I'm not already following them. Don't pay attention to what my mouse is doing. So where were we going? We're going back. We're going back. The Donald Trump Truth Social post, which often gets reposted on X in various locations, back from the 21st. Trump writes, based on a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1st, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago before my interview with Marsha Michaels. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others are, as needed, will be responsible for the negotiations. They will report directly to me. Thank you for your attention to this matter. As of this moment, there is no finalized deal on Greenland. Do you feel disappointed about that? The last thing I wanted was armed conflict. But one of the first things I wanted was national security. Arctic security. A little show of strength to our adversaries. And with this Greenland deal, I'm not impressed. Now we get what do we get? I was asking earlier. Oh, is this? Oh, of course. No, tell me it's not. This didn't update either. It's basically nothing new, apart from maybe the exclusion of our adversaries. Maybe that was something. Maybe that was something new. I just want to pull it up on my phone because I know it's there, because I know that's where I was working when I was finding out the finer details, the framework, as they called it. Oh, maybe it renamed it because I started asking other questions. Key points of the framework, that's what I wanted to pull up. Military and security enhancements. Updates the 1951 Defensive Greenland Agreement to expand U.S. operational freedom, including broader access for troops, aircraft, and ships across Greenland, including territorial waters, support for new bases and infrastructure, and deployment of advanced missile defense systems like the Golden Dome, resource and economic access, territorial compromises, and basically just we're gonna pretend like everything that we're already allowed to do was victory for ultimately getting bullied out by Denmark and the rest of the EU, who couldn't wait. They could not wait to unify against the United States, its ally, the defender of Europe, primary sponsor of NATO and the UN, was obstructed collectively by the other members of NATO and the European Union, which encapsulates the UN as well. New Europe, what gives? What gives? Okay, yeah, it's not ours. And your answer was just unequivocally no. Can't have it, can't do it. But it's going to make us really strong. No, no, we don't care. We don't want you to be strong. You're strong enough. We've decided. We've decided that you're strong enough. And their response to the tariffs that Trump was planning on levying against these nations that were just being jerks are as follows. Key economic threats and actions provided by Grok, thank you. Divestment from U.S. Treasury bonds. Denmark and other Europeans signaled readiness to dump U.S. treasuries, which are critical for funding U.S. debt. EU anti-coercion instruments. The EU could invoke this tool to suspend purchases of U.S. public securities, halting refinancings and new investments in treasuries. French President Emmanuel Macron publicly suggested using it if U.S. threats persisted, noting that EU governments hold 1.5 to 2 trillion in U.S. treasuries, with a third needing annual refinancing. Trade deal freeze and retaliation. The EU paused implementation of a US EU trade deal amid the tensions, which could raise costs for US consumers on items like medications and cars if prolonged. These measures were framed as proportional retaliation to US tariff threats and annexation rhetoric, ultimately contributing to the de escalation and framework agreement announced in late 2026. U.S. officials, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, downplayed the risks, but market reactions like rising bond yields and gold prices highlighted the potential impact. So America tries to strengthen its national security and its position in our hemisphere. And our great allies in Europe said, nah, we're going to block you. We're going to block you at all costs. And we're going to band together to stop you from doing something good for your country, for your citizens. Because of a block of ice in the Arctic with 57,000 people living on it. Okay. I was thinking that maybe Trump's Greenland posture was to excite the military industrial complex, to dangle a carrot, because Trump makes deals. But now I wonder if it was actually meant to show us that our European allies aren't as great as we hoped. Which is, I guess, reflecting upon that, it's not a huge surprise. But does it make you feel warm and cozy about all the money that we're pumping into NATO and the UN and all the defense that we're providing these European nations to protect them from Russia while they buy Russian oil, while they immediately unify against the United States in a land acquisition? And don't get me wrong, I was not really all that thrilled with the way things were developing. But now I feel like, with or without Greenland, no more money for you jerks in Europe. I'm sorry. You blew it. How about some mutual respect? How about some friendliness? How about the 75 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump? How about some respect? How about some respect for everything that we've done for Europe in the last 100 years, 150 years? But no, we don't like Trump, so we're going to stop him from doing something really good for the Americans. Okay. We'll have our money back, please. We'll have all of the perks that we've been providing Europe back. Why are we being nice to Europe when they're just going to be jerks and exercise their power against us when they have the opportunity? Trump went to the World Economic Forum. I know this is kind of old news. I'm not particularly excited about it, but it was interesting because he had some things to say about Europe and the Greenland deal. He took some shots at the people that, well, took shots at him in their speeches before he had his turn. But one of the very interesting things that he talked about was in this headline from the Gateway Pundit. Trump tells World Economic Forum the 2020 election was stolen and people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It claims there's a video, but I'm not that excited to play it. Here it is. Let's see. Maybe if it's easy, if it goes fast.
Watch what happens when a 50-year-old
Okay,
man walks DHT naturally for just 90 days.
We got one more second.
Do you owe over $10,000 in back taxes?
If it
Kevin
wasn't
Sorbo
Kevin
here
Sorbo,
with an important message.
If it wasn't Kevin Sorbo, I wouldn't tolerate it. Okay, here we go. Kevin Sorbo's a good guy.
NATO alliance, the United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. You can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it. When I went in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press.
It goes on for another 3 minutes. But the impactful part is that he's saying these things not to a room full of his peers and supporters. He's saying these things I mean, he even addresses it at some point in the speeches that he was making. A room containing many of his enemies, many of his supporters as well. But he's on the world stage saying what he's always been saying. That the elections in the United States are funky, and not just in the United States. In many countries. But the most sensational, maybe, At least sensational, according to the corrupt corporate media that Trump was just referring to, was the raids that the Trump administration conducted in Georgia. And it came largely in part, well, because of the things that this Georgia state senator, Greg Dolezal, confirmed in his speech in the in Georgia Congress. 5 minutes long. I think we are going to listen to the entire thing because, per my research, it's true, and you don't get the truth from the mainstream media.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to remind everyone what happened yesterday as it relates to the actual fact pattern of law. And a warrant was issued by a magistrate judge based on probable cause after evidence was submitted.
And this is being framed by the Democrats as some kind of unlawful action taken by the Trump administration to do who knows. The statement is just to discredit the operation.
Not a Trump-appointed judge, a magistrate judge. That is the way that the law enforcement process works in America. But we have heard repeatedly that everything was perfect with 2020. In fact, I think we probably at this point could trademark the most secure election in American history. What qualifications we use to measure that, I have no idea. But let's go back to what actually happened in 2020 if we're going to have the conversation. Drop boxes invented out of thin air, nowhere in Georgia law. Mobile voting units moving through Fulton County to 80% Democrat precincts, 81% Democrat precincts to be precise. Nowhere envisioned in Georgia law. 6.8 million absentee ballot request forms with a first-class stamp sent to every registered voter in the state of Georgia. Nowhere envisioned in Georgia law. If you count the same ballots 3 times, in theory, you should get numbers that match. But that didn't happen either. Let's talk about the recount that happened.
Because this is what they point to. When you talk about fraud, they go, oh, they did recounts, they did these investigations. Bill Barr said there was no evidence of widespread fraud. Okay.
Didn't happen either. Let's talk about the recount that happened. 3,930 double-scanned ballots in Fulton County alone. Thousands of those have been confirmed by the state election board. Governor Kemp actually raised the concerns of the Moncla-Rossi report, and we now know that there were double-scanned ballots. But even after the ballots were double-scanned in Fulton County, did the numbers match on the second recount? Nope. They were still off by 850 ballots. Not one person here can answer the question of how that happened, and that is a legitimate question. We know that ballot images were deleted. We know that test ballots were included in the recount process, and we have that confirmed.
Test ballots being ballots that weren't actually legal votes. Counted them anyway.
But I want to take just a minute and talk about what the Democrats did in response to legitimate questions over the 2020 election. A former constituent of mine, Derek Somerville, former FBI agent, ran data analysis along with another gentleman named Mark Davis. And remember the 6.8 million absentee ballot request forms that were sent out? They had a first-class stamp. So that means if you filed the national change of address form, that was automatically forwarded to your new address. And they identified reasonable cause to question the validity of 39,141 of those ballots that were cast. They knew that 160 people had been registered to vote from a single UPS store. 2,138 people had been registered to vote from one church in Fulton County. 1,391 had been registered to vote from a shuttered 1,000 square foot building in Fulton County. Unless you think Fulton County has cleaned up their voter rolls, today, Thousands of people are registered to vote in Fulton County at UPS stores, storage units, pack mails, homeless shelters that haven't been open for over 5 years. The Fulton County voter rolls have been and continue to be a mess. But when Derek Somerville and Mark Davis followed the law and filed objections to those voters, what did the Democrats do? Well, Stacey Abrams sued them in federal court, and they won. Not Stacey Abrams, but Somerville and Davis won. Judge Jones, not a Republican judge, ruled in their favor. What have we learned since then about those 39,000 voters? 12,000 of them have been removed from the voter rolls because Somerville and Davis were correct that they were no longer eligible to vote. 9,500 have updated their address to a new address outside of Fulton County, proving once again that Somerville and Davis were correct and those people were ineligible to vote. Ultimately, 84% of the votes of the eligibility that Somerville and Davis challenged were proven to have been invalid voters in the 2020 election. So let's stop this charade of the most perfect, most secure election in history. But more importantly, and I would agree with my colleagues on this, let's look forward to the future elections, and it's darn near past time for Fulton County to clean up their voter rolls.
Of course, this video is sandwiched between videos of Democrats talking about what a tragedy it is that this is happening, what a terrible person Donald Trump is, and what terrible people everyone is that voted for him. And it's all because they know that they've been caught. And there are no levels that they won't stoop to maintain their power. If you're not convinced, this next video, it's the entire presentation from this data nerd. I just reposted it on my X account at earthvox. If you would like to head over there and check out the video, give me a follow if you're there, and don't forget to share the show as often as possible. But the Skiff writes on X at the SCIF. Analysis from the 2020 Georgia election found over 40 data points where negative voting or outright vote switching occurred, totaling over 200,000 votes, along with the machine learning algorithms, which flagged over 500 precincts with over 1 million corresponding votes that had suspicious activity in the 2020 Georgia election alone. The total amount of fraud that occurred during the 2020 election is absolutely mind-boggling and one of the most sophisticated election fraud operations in U.S. history. And I think this is all connected. Everything that's going on. Minnesota, the immigration, mass deportations. I think the globalists have been using this method to install their own governors into all the countries that they need to control across the world. I didn't misspeak. If the globalist cabal installed you as the prime minister of a country, you're a governor. And I wonder, with bated breath, what's going to happen to the governors in the places like Georgia and Arizona? What's going to happen to all the people that have been elected using these fraudulent voting systems over the last 10 years? It's why I have a really hard time holding the voters accountable for electing people like Zoran Mamdani. Which, by the way, I'm sorry. I'm gonna rant again. It's Mom Donnie, not Mondami. Mom, like your mother. Donnie, like short for Donald, like Steve Buscemi's character in The Big Lebowski. Can we get professional speakers? Can we get that right? Mom Donnie. Am I a douche for bringing that up? Is that cringe? It bothers me. These professionals, these media professionals. Mondami. Zoran Mondami. No, it's Mom Donnie. Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I had to get that off my chest. I have to vent. These things really, they just give me mind worms. And I mean, of course, we can hold them responsible for so much more than mispronunciations of these names. But I mean, not the people that I'm fans of generally sober-minded people. I just don't know why the people around them don't say, "Hey, it's actually Mom Donnie." Maybe they're scared. Maybe people don't need to be corrected. Maybe I know who they're talking about, so I should just shut up. Okay, accepted. But the media in itself is responsible, largely, for this imaginary support. So that, I mean, when we see people like Zoran Mamdani and Katie Hobbs getting elected, we go, oh, okay, well, we don't immediately think fraud because we see, oh, it covered so positively in the mainstream media. All the polls showed that she had a lot of support from the voters. I mean, this is why we don't appreciate polls on this podcast, because you can just make it up. Who's going around to audit the poll? The only realistic poll audits we get are when the election is over and we go, oh, dang. I guess that poll wasn't very correct. And now think about what the poll said about Donald Trump when he won in 2016. The polls projected Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016, and the polls predicted that Kamala Harris was going to win in 2024. To me, that is an indication that polls are propaganda, just like almost all of the leftist media. And this is why people like Abigail Spanberger get elected in Virginia. And that other nutcase, Jay Jones, wasn't that his name? The attorney general? That is going to now be the bulldog for this fraudulent Abigail Spanberger. I mean, you remember her? She's so gross. I think we played the clip of her on this podcast in her debate with Winsome Sears, the Republican, who, of course, rhino Republicans and propagandists that exist on the right. Yes, they do. I'm sorry if this is news to you. The right also lies to you, conservatives. They say, oh, she ran a bad campaign and she was lazy and she thought she had it in the bag and her image was all this. Oh, okay. Okay. These are all excuses rolled out by the uniparty Republicans to make you question allegations of voter fraud. I hope we find out. I hope we find out that all of these communist, socialist, Marxists have been fraudulently elected in the states that they're representing. And at this point, I really think Virginians are worried about Abigail Spanberger. Look at this. If you're watching the video, look at this absolutely extensive list of new taxes that the Virginia legislative body is now levying against Virginians. From the Wall Street Apes writes, Virginia Democrats just introduced over 50 new taxes. Additional local sales tax in all Virginia counties. New personal property tax, gym membership tax, highway use fees, home repair tax, vehicle repair tax, electric leaf blowers and electric landscaping equipment tax, large employer tax, gun and ammunition tax, new income tax brackets, a delivery tax that will hit you if you ordered things on Amazon, Uber Eats, UPS, FedEx, etc., investment income tax, event tax, concert tax, storage facility tax, dog grooming tax, counseling tax, new car taxes, dry cleaning tax, concert tax, and many more. Let's watch the video. No, let's not. I'm moving on. This was the administration that was campaigning on affordability. And it's not just new taxes. I have this from Grok. I had to really fight with him about it. Grok has been woefully disappointing. Woefully disappointing lately. Especially when it comes to asking questions to or asking for answers to questions that you kind of already know the answer to. Oh, that wasn't the right screen that I was trying to share. I'm sorry about it. And then I'm just inundated with more and more issues of things. It's okay. I'm not gonna freak out. I'm all freaked out already. I vented in the opening of the show. Thank you for staying with me. But I asked Grok about all the new Virginia legislation that is like literally a slap in the face. Well, obviously not literally. Nobody's going around actually slapping Virginians in the face, but I bet they feel slapped. Grok writes, in January 2026, following Democrats gaining control of Virginia's government, they introduced numerous bills criticized on X as undermining election integrity and disrespecting voters by enabling fraud, reducing transparency, and altering voting processes. HB 111 bans cleaning voter rolls of dead, duplicate, or ineligible voters, seen as preserving potential fraud. Seems to preserve fraud to me. HB 968 makes hand counting ballots illegal, forcing machine-only counts amid distrust in electronic systems. HB 773 and HB 82 allows mail-in and absentee ballots to be counted days or weeks after Election Day, raising, quote, found votes concerns. HJ4 proposes why is it called a HJ, do you think? When all these others are HB, which I imagine is House Bill. Anyway, HJ4 proposes gerrymandering congressional districts to favor Democrats, overriding voter-approved processes. HB 965 joins the National Popular Vote Compact, allocating Virginia's electoral votes based on national popular vote, bypassing the Electoral College. 3 different bills here, 964, 963, and 1014, automatically restore voting rights to felons and mentally incompetent upon release. I think I'm actually in favor of that one. I mean, change my mind. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on why that's a bad thing. I think everybody that's legally allowed to vote should vote. But I don't mean through this legislative process that says, oh, illegal aliens can vote because it helps us win. I don't, that's not a legal voter in my opinion, and in the context of this argument that I'm making. And finally, HB 493 permits internet voting, criticized as insecure and prone to hacking. So basically, massive efforts and legislation against the voters of Virginia. Efforting, I mean, no doubt, like, how could you argue that this isn't efforting to rig elections and take the voice away from the voter? So I just wonder, should I blame the voters of Virginia for being idiots and electing this CIA spook that's going to single-handedly destroy their state and local governments? I mean, how could I do that? Believing what I believe about the integrity of elections today, how could I, with a clear conscience, blame the voters? Especially with things like this, posted on X by Eric Doherty. Breaking. Elon Musk just posted that the DOJ is suing Virginia for having a voter registration duplication rate of 33% in 2024, nearly triple the national rate. This would suggest that an item on the ballot that only has 25% support would pass because of this duplication. Let's see what the letter here says. The July 15th letter identified data Virginia. Oh, this is all these people that think they're good writers. The July 15th letter identified data Virginia reported to the EAC, published in the 2024 EAVS report that the United States desired explanations for. The Virginia data included registration rate, i.e., percentage of citizen voting age population registered to vote, of 92.2%. Confirmation notice rates of 8.8% versus 19.5% national average, and duplicate registration rate of 33.2% versus 12.7% national average. Nothing to see here. Or was she fraudulently elected? Was a Democrat supermajority fraudulently elected? And did they then work quickly to make sure that nobody would be able to find out about the fraud? But were they too late? This is what I hold out hope for. I'm discouraged. I'm discouraged by the actions that have been taken so far. And of course, I constantly remind myself these things all have a political clock attached to them. We don't want to move too fast because the public will forget before the midterms. Of course, the Democrats will have their counterplay. I mean, you're seeing it unfold. But I find it disturbing that all of these radical leftists are being elected in every election. We have Katie Wilson in Seattle doing her best to ruin the city. We now have Abigail Spanberger in Virginia doing her best to turn Virginia into a house of fraud. And all the other usual suspects that we talk about all the time. Almost like they cheat elections to install dictators to ruin your town because, here we go, they want you to move away so they don't have to rely on voter fraud forever. They want you to move away so the only people left will vote for them because they are fully brainwashed or fully dependent. And this message works its way through the communication vines of our enemies, our domestic enemies. We can't win elections if we don't cheat, and we need immigrants to cheat so we can show voters on our voter rolls. So we can show citizens that need more congressional representation. I mean, that's why they don't want the citizenship question to be on the census. And of course, more electoral college votes. You got more people in your state gets more electoral college votes. More power to decide the president. So when it's put like that, they have to create chaos. They have to activate the Marxist cells. And they do that with propaganda. And Josh Howerton provided an excellent breakdown on all of the ICE propaganda that we've been inundated with ever since. I mean, I know I've talked about it before. I bring it up. Where are? Oh, I've lost it. It disappeared. It's totally gone. I've been sick all week, and I'm still definitely feeling it. I took 3 days off from work. Wasn't enough. I still wake up feeling absolutely awful. And I really wanted to drink an energy drink this morning, but I abstained. Well, so we've been inundated with all of this ICE propaganda for weeks. Because civil war is the goal. And you hear the inflammatory rhetoric coming from both sides, from uniparty Republicans and leftist Democrats. Whatever they can do to create a divide. But just on the ICE propaganda, Josh Howerton breaks it down for us. And it's been going on for much longer than just this year in Minneapolis because of the deportation efforts. Josh Howerton writes, as it has become clear that at least to some degree, the Democratic Party is dependent upon the immigrant-to-voter pipeline to win elections. Progressives are trying very hard to, quote, BLM ICE right now. In BLM, progressives galvanize the American public against law enforcement by convincing people a white police officer killed an unarmed black man, yelling, hands up, don't shoot. Cities burned and people died in the riot aftermath. This was all because of mainstream media propaganda. The same thing is happening now. Deceptively edited images and videos designed to emotionally manipulate people into frenzied opposition of law enforcement with ties like this. Congressman Sri Tanadar, we've played him here. This is the Indian immigrant that now holds a seat in the United States Congress. He posted, a baby was hospitalized after being tear gassed by ICE. Their family was not illegal and not even protesting, just driving home from their son's basketball game. This can't be reformed. Time to abolish ICE, he writes, with an attached picture of the presumed baby. Could be fake. Does Sri Tanadar even have the integrity to find out the truth? The reality. Lies. We are being lied to. Remember the sob story about the family with the baby getting tear gassed? They said they were just passing through the area on the way home from their son's basketball game. No, here they are on video at the riot nearly 45 minutes before the flashbang struck their car. These still images are from loser Jonathan Mason's video that night at about 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. They left their kids in the car at the riot, and the baby nearly died. Because these are the winners. And they were probably paid. Just as an aside. I mean, if you can see the video, these aren't the most fit specimens. I doubt they'd get out of their chair for free. Bring their baby. Viral propaganda. Deaths in ICE custody reach 20-year high amid Trump enforcement push. This was shared by Axios. The reality from Homeland Security. Yet again, the media is trying to twist data to smear ICE law enforcement. There has been no spikes in deaths. Consistent with data over the last decade, death rates in custody are 0.00007%. As bed space has expanded, we have maintained higher standard of care than most prisons that hold U.S. citizens, including providing access to proper medical care. For many illegal aliens, this is the best health care they have received their entire lives. Okay, great. Get them out of here. I don't want to pay for it. But we have a whole Democrat apparatus, complete with judges that are forcing us to pay for this. More viral propaganda. This video of a girl weeping as she watched ICE detain a man in her neighborhood went viral. In reality, ICE was detaining a man who lived at the same address as two convicted child rapists, and he refused to comply with officers. But she doesn't know any better. She's brainwashed just like the rest of the radical leftists. Video of this seemingly disabled woman being pulled from her car went viral. Mike Norton posted, "This woman looks horrified while she frantically tried to explain to the ICE agents ripping her out of her car that she's disabled and was on her way to the doctor. Then other agents in the background try to shield the scene from photographers. ICE is terrorizing our city." Reality. She was intentionally obstructing ICE officers and blocking a road and was asked by 4 different ICE officers to move, and she did not comply. I mean, this sounds like it's right out of the Hamas playbook. That's why they do their operations in hospitals and elementary schools, so that they can then run to the propagandist media and say, oh, look at the terrible things that are being done to us. Tell me this disabled woman wasn't paid or intensely incentivized to go and do this nonsense. I mean, somebody was right there filming her. Somebody was ready for it. More propaganda. Ben Crump, at Attorney Crump, writes on X, Keith Porter Jr. was a father of 2, a son and a brother whose life was stolen by an off-duty ICE agent. His family gathered in grief, demanding the truth. We will continue to stand with Keith Porter Jr.'s family until there is justice, transparency, and answers. In reality, Gina Milan writes, are we really doing this again? He was firing celebratory gunshots into the air with an AR-15 style rifle in a residential complex. An off-duty ICE agent who lived there heard the shots, reasonably believed it was an active shooter, confronted him, identified himself as law enforcement, and ordered him to drop the weapon. Porter didn't comply. Authorities say he fired 3 rounds at the agent, and only then did the agent return fire. Blatant propaganda to trick you into behaving a certain way. Power to the people, at Proud Socialist writes on X, another horrifying image out of Minnesota. Look at the terror on this man's face as a federal agent points a gun at his face and threatens his life. Enough is enough. Our government is committing war crimes abroad and murdering and terrorizing citizens at home. We need a revolution. First of all, I don't even have to read the debunking. I can tell that this weapon it looks like a gas grenade launcher, is not pointed at this guy's face. The reality. While trying to obstruct law enforcement, he grabbed the officer's weapon, pulling it toward his face, and it was tear gas, not a rifle. He did take a shot right to the side of the dome, or at least the powder splashed on his. Let's see, we're reading. Oh yeah, it like hit him in the chest, shoulder, clavicle area, and he seems fine. Of course, where does the clip begin? About 4 seconds before the officer actually fires the round. So no context, per usual. Another key element of leftist propaganda. You don't get the whole story. You get the story that they want you to get. Doug Henwood writes on X, more propaganda. ICE in Charlotte, the guy in the headlock is a restaurant worker. And they do got to have the guy in a headlock. They're grabbing his arms. They're trying to handcuff him. He's resisting. Parents, tell your children today about resisting law enforcement. A public service announcement brought to you by the earthvox podcast. You want your kids getting killed by law enforcement officers? Well, then you should tell them not to fight them, not to bring guns to protest and obstruct them, and not try to run them over with your car. We're saving lives here on the earthvox podcast. The reality to the poor restaurant worker being brutalized by ICE agents. He wasn't a restaurant worker. He was, oh, big surprise. He was an illegal convicted child rapist that fled into a restaurant to evade arrest. So did the person that posted the propaganda just not know? I mean, it's quite possible. It goes on and on and on. I mean, I could do a whole show about this. All of the lies that the media tells their viewers every day. It's reposted if you would like to see the rest of the stories. But we're already over an hour. My goodness, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that we're doing this. I had such a good time. It really helped me. I mean, full disclosure, I was in a good mood until all of the nonsense. Oh, there were a couple other stories. Oh, yes, you must have heard about the 5-year-old ICE victim that was kidnapped by ICE. That was the propaganda, yes. The 5-year-old's father was an illegal immigrant that left his son when he fled from ICE arrest. This led the media to say ICE kidnapped him. And these idiots just eat it up. There's a guy with a carrot farm. Maybe you saw that one on Instagram. Talking about how all of his carrot crops are gonna rot in the ground, or something bad's gonna happen. He's gonna lose he's gonna lose his farm, and his kids are gonna go hungry. And the left now cares apparently about families and working farmers when it means that we keep illegal immigrants in the country. Turns out completely false. Not even a carrot farm, according to experts that analyzed the video. But no, you have to come here to learn about that. And my initial thought before I even realized that it was a fake video was, I suppose, if all your labor is coming from illegal immigrants and you don't have a plan B for the potentiality that your entire labor force could one day be deported by an administration that actually wants to enforce the laws, the failure of your farm is kind of on you. And if you're that irresponsible running your farm, I think that the chances that your farm was going to fail are pretty high to begin with. Let's see, what else did I want to get to here? We got the propaganda breakdown. We got the election fraud. Oh, there was a lot of actors and movie stars also very closely entrenched with the propaganda wing of the globalist cabal. They were out there. Bruce Springsteen was mad. I couldn't help but notice that he was on the front page of Apple Music this morning. And I just thought that couldn't possibly have any connection to all of the propaganda that he was spouting. Because, I mean, this is how they manipulate the famous musicians and the famous movie stars into regurgitating their propaganda to anyone that will listen. They say you won't be able to book venues. You'll be shunned by insurance companies. Your agent will drop you. So get in front of the camera and say what we tell you to say, and we'll make it worth your while. I mean, Bruce Springsteen wrote a song. I mean, it was all over the media this week. Bruce Springsteen wrote an anti-ICE song. Giancarlo Esposito, the guy that played Gus Fring in the Breaking Bad, he said we need a revolution. I mean, can you believe that? I don't even hold them fully responsible. Of course, they could say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to walk away from my career because I'm not going to spread your propaganda. They won't do it. They won't do it because they're cowards. And being a coward is not anywhere near as bad as being a traitor. Even though sometimes it's hard to distinguish. And you can make up your own mind. I'm honestly not. No, I mean, no judgment here. Be as mad as you want to be. I can't be mad at voters when I know many elections are fraudulent. And I can't be mad at musicians and movie stars because I know they don't really have a chance. They don't really have a chance to push back. The machine is bigger and more powerful than than I know. Even with as closely as I've studied. And they're using all of their power. And it's all over the world. They're hoping that they can start this global revolution before the public realizes what's going on. And in this country, they're hoping that they can start the civil war before Donald Trump dismantles the entire apparatus that is giving them power. I mean, you don't believe me? Like, why is the language the same across the world? I heard I think it was the new health ambassador from Wales. She was in the headlines because well, she's a porker, and I can't really talk, but I'm not a health ambassador. And she's up there wearing her burqa, talking about how she's a person of color. And I hear that language, and I go, wait a minute. That's the language of the globalist left. And it's the language of the globalist left in the United States. And it's the language of the globalist left in Europe also. I mean, why do you think jumping in front of cars is their thing? Why do you think like defacing monuments is their thing in Europe, in the United States, and in all of the Western countries that apparently need to be overthrown? I mean, they have the same tactics everywhere. Why do you think that is? Oh, because it's the same team. You can roll your eyes when I talk about the globalist cabal. That's fine. Explain to me why the tactics are the same. Because they're proven to be so effective? Because whatever topic they're protesting, whatever their goal is so righteous? It's because chaos is the objective. That's the effect that they're trying to have. They want chaos. They want agitation. They want people to take up arms against each other. And it's just confirmed when I hear the same language, when I see the same tactics. It tells me that it's a centralized message that's being pushed out to the West. You must see it. And they're not even trying to deny it. Their only response is, can you believe? Can you believe the nerve? And there's not nearly enough people that interested in pushing back and fighting against it. We have the SAVE Act working its way through Congress, while uniparty Republicans work to make sure that it fails. We at least have heroes like Anna Paulina Luna saying she will shut the government down and keep it shut down, and she has enough votes to accomplish that if we don't get the SAVE Act, which will create voter ID, which will contains voter ID, contains paper ballots, and hopefully contains the election integrity that we need in our country to stop these communists from gaining power in our country again. But it remains to be seen. It's a developing story. And from what I know now, as of now, I am not very encouraged. But come back next Sunday at hopefully 11 a.m. and we will further investigate the developments. Follow me at earthvox on X. Check out those reposted stories and reach out to me if you want some verification, if you want some receipts on anything that I've talked about. Don't hesitate to reach out. I had an exchange with, I would call him a peer, earlier this week on that very thing, and I was happy to provide the data, or at least the results of the data, even though it was a bit adversarial. No hard feelings. Look me up on Rumble. Give me a follow there. That is where I would prefer you get the video version of this podcast. As always, the audio version is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Send an email to therealearthvox@protonmail.com to discuss anything you would like. I would never sell your email address. And of course, send a voicemail to 701-787-1121. I'll be back.